Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that, well, it really defined an era: COVID-19 vaccine misinformation and the wave of hesitancy it created. Our mission for this deep dive is to cut through the noise. We're going to unpack the incredible variety of false claims that circulated, explore the often complex reasons why people became hesitant, and then look at the extraordinary, sometimes surprising, measures taken worldwide to counter these challenges. We're drawing directly from a comprehensive Wikipedia entry which meticulously documented this whole information battle.
Yeah, and this deep dive is crucial because it's not just about what happened during COVID-19. It's really a masterclass in how societies react to new threats, how information and, crucially, misinformation spreads like wildfire. And the immense complexities of public health efforts in a hyper-connected world. What's truly fascinating here is the sheer creativity sometimes and persistence of the falsehoods.
Right.
And the equally diverse attempt to address them. We're going to unpack why certain claims resonated and what common threads kind of tied them together.
Okay, let's get into it. This massive landscape of false claims.
Right.
When the pandemic hit, it wasn't just a virus spreading, it was like an infodemic.
Infodemic, yeah.
Unfounded conspiracy theories, misinformation. It just spread like wildfire, often twisting or completely misrepresenting science, religion, even legal stuff. We saw everything from wild exaggerations about side effects to honestly bizarre notions about how our immune system works, and even those fantastical claims linking COVID-19 to 5G networks.
Oh, yeah, the 5G thing.
It truly was a challenge to sort fact from fiction.
Absolutely. And that skepticism about COVID-19 seriousness, it was pervasive, even before vaccines were widely available. Think about Tanzania, for instance. The late President John Pombe Magufuli declared the country COVID-19 free. Just declared it.
Wow.
And promoted herbal remedies. That directly fueled hesitancy there. We also saw that hoax about World Bank documents, planning pandemic measures years in advance.
Right, I remember that one.
Turns out they were actually updated after the pandemic began. It's a classic example of taking a kernel of truth and just twisting it into a conspiracy.
And then came the variants. Delta, for instance, became a new target. There were these disinformation campaigns falsely claiming that COVID-19 vaccines actually caused the Delta variant.
Which is scientifically impossible. Vaccines don't replicate the virus like that.
Exactly. And a French virologist made a similar false claim about antibody-dependent enhancement, or ADE, suggesting vaccine antibodies could somehow make things worse or create new variants.
Yeah, that ADE claim was persistent, but it was consistently debunked. ADE is a real phenomenon, theoretically, where antibodies could make a later infection worse. It has been seen in animal studies for other coronaviruses, sure, but it has not been observed in human clinical trials or the widespread use of COVID-19 vaccines. It
gets weaponized.
It's exactly. Anti-vaccination activists weaponizing scientific terms out of context. You also had that debunked theory from India claiming vaccines lowered immunity against variants, and the misrepresentation of CDC Director Rochelle Walensky's statements. She never said vaccines didn't protect against Delta or that vaccinated people were super spreaders.
No.
What she actually said was simply that vaccinated and unvaccinated folks could have similarly high viral loads if they got infected with Delta.
Right, a key difference.
But she consistently emphasized the vaccine prevented severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Pfizer-BioNTech, for example, was 88% effective against symptomatic Delta infections. So a small detail twisted into this huge falsehood.
It wasn't just theories either, was it? Organized crime quickly moved in to exploit the chaos. And here's where it gets really concerning. In July 2021, Indian police arrested 14 people for administering fake saltwater vaccines.
Saltwater.
Yes, instead of the real Oxford AstraZeneca jab. They were charging between $10 and $17 per dose, affecting over 2,600 people in Mumbai alone. Imagine thinking you're protected only to find out it was just saline.
That's chilling. And Interpol issued a global alert way back in December 2020 about these organized crime networks targeting vaccines, both physically and online. The WHO also warned about suspicious offers and doses being sold on the dark web for like $500 to $750.
Wow.
With no verified distribution pipeline. These weren't just theoretical threats, they were active, dangerous scams.
And on top of that, fake vaccination cards became a huge problem, especially in the United States. We saw arrests in Hawaii, Vermont. A California doctor was even caught falsifying records. In August 2021, U.S. Customs agents seized, 121 packages? Over 3,000 fake cards shipped from Shenzhen.
Yeah, and research from Checkpoint showed these fake cards were selling via messaging apps for $100 to $120 each. Interpol even noted a direct correlation between countries requiring negative COVID-19 tests for entry and a surge in fake vaccination cards.
Makes sense.
It really highlights how quickly these illicit markets adapt to new public health measures.
Okay, so beyond the outright scams and conspiracies, some of the most insidious misinformation directly attacked the science, didn't it? Preying on our natural anxieties about health. This included those persistent claims of vaccine inefficacy, often based on statistical misinterpretations.
Right, and this wasn't just a simple statistical error. It showed how our brains kind of struggle with context sometimes. It makes us vulnerable to simple-sounding but deeply misleading narratives, especially when fear is high. People would see a high proportion of vaccinated patients among hospitalizations or deaths and wrongly conclude the vaccines weren't working.
The base rate fallacy.
Exactly. Statisticians call it the base rate fallacy or the Ewell-Simpson effect. Basically, scientific terms for a common statistical trap. You see a small piece of the puzzle, think you understand the whole picture, but forget the vast majority of the population was vaccinated. A UK report, in fact, predicted that 60% of hospitalizations and 70% of deaths would eventually be among double-vaccinated people.
Predicted it?
Yes, but explicitly stated this was not because the vaccines were ineffective, but, quote, merely uptake being so high.
Ah.
And it's also crucial to remember that booster doses significantly reduce infection likelihood and severity later on.
And how about the claim that mRNA vaccines aren't real vaccines because they don't prevent transmission? I remember financial analyst David Martin pushing that idea.
Yeah, that raises an important question about definitions, doesn't it? Neither the CDC nor the FDA actually stipulate that a vaccine must prevent transmission. They define a vaccine as a product that stimulates the immune system to produce immunity, which mRNA vaccines clearly do.
Right.
A closely related and equally persistent piece of misinformation was the claim that mRNA vaccines alter human DNA.
That one was definitely scary for many people. I remember hearing about that Wisconsin pharmacist who removed vials from cold storage because he believed they could change DNA. Tragic.
But scientifically, mRNA just cannot alter DNA. Correct. It degrades rapidly. It cannot enter the cell nucleus where our DNA is kept safe, and it lacks the tools, the mechanisms. Unlike some viruses that have a special enzyme, sort of a biological copy-paste tool.
Reverse transcriptase.
Exactly, to write their genetic material into our DNA. mRNA simply doesn't possess that ability. It's a fundamental difference.
Okay.
And then there were the highly sensitive concerns around reproductive health. A December 2020 petition falsely suggested mRNA vaccines could cause infertility in women by targeting a protein called syncytin-1.
The placenta protein.
Yes, necessary for placenta formation. But this was completely unfounded. The sequence similarity between syncytin-1 and the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein is minimal, just tiny, and studies in rats, even at 300 times the human dose, showed no adverse effects on fertility.
And the idea of vaccine shedding, that was everywhere for a while. False claims spread that vaccinated individuals could shed spike proteins, causing menstrual irregularities or even miscarriages in unvaccinated women nearby.
Which led to some really extreme actions, like that Centner Academy in Miami refusing to employ vaccinated teachers.
Unbelievable.
And some businesses turning away vaccinated customers. Gynecologist Jen Gunter emphatically debunked this, stating no approved vaccine could possibly affect an unvaccinated person's menstruation, fertility, or pregnancy. This claim just preyed on a deep, primal fear.
Yeah. The misinformation wasn't just general either. It also targeted specific, frightening medical conditions. Claims circulated that the Pfizer vaccine caused Bell's palsy.
Right, but the trial showed participant rates were consistent with the general population background rates. So what you expect to see anyway. Experts agree that even if there is some causal link, it's extremely rare, maybe 10 cases per 100,000.
Which is very low.
Very low compared to the typical pre-pandemic rate of 3 to 7 cases, and it's usually temporary.
And blood clots. Videos falsely claimed mRNA vaccines cause clots in minutes or in like 62% of recipients.
Yeah.
Wild number.
Totally wild. Now, there was a rare possible link between the AstraZeneca and Janssen vaccines and a specific clotting disorder called TTS.
Okay.
In the U.S., there were 47 confirmed cases out of 15 million Janssen recipients by October 2021. So very rare.
Extremely rare.
But here's the perspective. SARS-CoV-2 infection itself is about 200 times more likely to cause blood clots than the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Wow, 200 times. That really puts the risk in perspective.
It does. Other claims were equally outlandish, playing on deep fears. assertions that mRNA vaccines cause cancer by inactivating tumor-suppressing proteins.
Which misrepresented an unrelated study, right?
Completely unrelated 2018 study. Then a Facebook post linked mRNA vaccines to prion diseases based on a paper from a predatory journal. Experts dismiss it as completely wrong.
Predatory journals are a problem.
They are. And then the absurd claim that vaccines contained aborted fetal tissue.
That one kept coming up.
Yeah. While cell lines derived from fetuses from the 70s and 80s were used in development.
Way back in the lab testing phase.
Exactly. No fetal tissue is present in the final vaccines themselves. None.
Perhaps one of the most widely used pieces of misinformation, though, related to claims of vaccines causing death, especially by misrepresenting data from VAERS.
Ah, yes. The VAERS data, it was constantly misrepresented, used to claim a hidden toll of vaccine-related deaths.
Yeah.
But VAERS just records any health event that occurs after vaccination.
Yeah.
Doesn't prove causation.
Right. Correlation isn't causation.
Precisely. So things like suicides, car accidents, natural deaths from chronic diseases, they get reported if they happen after a vaccine, but it doesn't mean the vaccine caused them. It's a database for reporting potential signals, not for proving cause and effect.
And there were specific high-profile cases that got twisted.
Absolutely. The most popular shared link on Facebook in early 2021 was about a doctor's death 2 weeks post-vaccine, later found to be unrelated. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Del Bigtree made unsubstantiated claims about Hank Aaron's death being vaccine-related. More recently, Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo discouraged vaccination for men aged 1839 based on an unpeer-reviewed study linking it to an 84% increased likelihood of dying from heart problems.
Which was widely criticized.
Widely criticized for misrepresentation and lack of transparency. Now, a JAMA study did show an increased risk of myocarditis, about 106 per million doses for males aged 16-17, but most cases were mild.
Important context.
Yeah, very important.
And this information wasn't just about effects, it also targeted what was supposedly in the vaccines. Newsmax falsely tweeted that Moderna contained luciferase for tracking.
Luciferase.
And later claims about graphene oxide. I remember seeing those videos of people trying to stick magnets to their arms because of claims about microchips.
Yeah, the magnetization claim. Truly bizarre.
It was almost comical, but for many, it fueled real fear.
Understandable, but completely baseless. Experts debunk this easily. 5G chips are too large for needles, most microchips aren't magnetic anyway, and smooth objects can just stick to oily skin.
Simple physics.
Simple physics. No U.S. or Europe authorized vaccines contain magnetic or metal ingredients or microchips. Just proteins, lipids, water, salts, pH buffers. Basic stuff.
And no, you can't get rid of vaccine effects with a detox bath.
Definitely not. No known mechanism for that.
What's fascinating here is the lengths some went to create confusion, like the claims that FDA-approved vaccines like Pfizer's Comirnaty were not available in the U.S. because doses were still labeled Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine.
Right, that EUA versus full approval distinction.
Yeah.
It's just for legal and labeling reasons, but it led to these false claims that the approved versions were somehow different or lacked liability protection.
But they were the same formula.
Identical formula,
Right.
Interchangeable. And all COVID-19 vaccines were covered by the PrEP Act's Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program, CICP. So the liability claims were just wrong.
Okay.
And Moderna's website, using operating system as an analogy for mRNA vaccines, got twisted into a literal claim that vaccines were operating systems designed to program humans.
Just an analogy.
It's an analogy. Then there's the more concerning revelation from that Reuters investigation. A secret U.S. Department of Defense disinformation campaign from 2020 to 2021.
You mean the one aimed at discrediting China's Sinovac vaccine? That was a wild one.
Yeah. This campaign ran in the Philippines, Central Asia, and the Middle East. It used phony social media accounts, hashtags like #ChinaIsTheVirus.
Wow.
Spreading false claims about Sinovac containing pork gelatin, making it haram for Muslims.
Whoa, targeting religion.
Exactly. U.S. diplomats apparently opposed it, but the military overruled them. A retrospective review by the DoD later found much of the messaging was, quote, many leagues away from acceptable military objectives.
That's really something. It's a potent reminder of the fine line between strategic communication and outright deception, isn't it?
It is, and how even well-intentioned efforts by powerful entities can inadvertently fuel the very distrust they aim to combat.
So moving beyond the direct vaccine claims, the socially based claims were equally varied, often merging with broader political divides and distrust in government.
Definitely. QAnon beliefs, for instance, really embraced the pandemic to promote their conspiracy theories. You had Instances like Romana Diallo, the self-proclaimed Queen of Canada, urging followers to harass businesses and later even calling to shoot to kill healthcare workers.
Gosh.
And anti-government groups like Sovereign Citizens actively participated, seeing the pandemic measures as another tool of government control.
This distrust wasn't confined to specific groups or countries either.
No.
In Bulgaria, many Roma neighborhoods, already distrustful of institutions, experienced these targeted lockdowns without proper explanation, which just strained relationships further. And in France, right-wing politicians publicly cast doubts on vaccine effectiveness and safety.
Yeah.
It raises that important question. How do these deep-seated societal issues and existing distrust impact public health efforts during a crisis?
That's a critical point. And we even saw government investigations like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis requesting a grand jury in December 2022 to investigate criminal or wrongful activity related to vaccine development and distribution.
Right, naming drug manufacturers and federal officials.
Exactly. These investigations, regardless of their outcome, definitely contribute to the ongoing narrative of distrust for some people.
Okay, so this huge deluge of misinformation naturally didn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It directly fed into vaccine hesitancy. But what were the deeper reasons people were reluctant? Maybe beyond just these wild claims, some very specific concerns popped up, and it's important we acknowledge them.
For sure.
Menstrual irregularities, for example, became a significant concern for some, leading to hesitancy.
And a 2023 meta-analysis did indicate a possible link, but it really requires more study to establish any kind of causal relationship. It's complex.
Right, and pregnancy and vaccine hesitancy, that was another major area.
Huge area.
Yeah.
Pregnant people were generally less likely to get vaccinated. Factors include younger age, maybe lower education or socioeconomic status, and whether they usually got their flu shot. What's fascinating is one study found that the influence of education and prior flu vaccination actually varied by race. It suggests that systemic racism and lived experiences might have impacted hesitancy among pregnant individuals differently in different communities.
That makes sense. History matters, and we saw significant regional differences in hesitancy, too, like Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong had low vaccination rates for a while. It seemed to be a mix of things. Low perceived risk when COVID was controlled locally, lots of misinformation about side effects, and crucially, political distrust of the HKSR government.
Political distrust.
Big factor. Plus, a push for Sinovac. Despite lower efficacy data, concerns about BioNTech side effects in older people, even a BioNTech packaging issue that fueled conspiracy theories.
Wow.
And just general skepticism of Western medicine was also a factor. It created this complex web of reasons for reluctance.
That political distrust sounds like a significant barrier.
It was. By January 2022, only 33% of those 80 or older in Hong Kong had received even one dose. And a study during the Omicron subvariant spread really highlighted the difference. A 15% death rate for unvaccinated people aged 80 plus all, compared to 3% for those with 2 Sinovac shots and only 1.5% for those with 2 BioNTech doses.
Stark difference. A powerful illustration of the real-world impact of hesitancy.
Absolutely.
In the United States, a really striking partisan gap in death rates emerged after vaccines became available.
Yeah, that was noticeable.
By March 2024, over 30% of Republicans had not received a COVID-19 vaccine, compared to less than 10% of Democrats. It's a stark illustration of how political identity became intertwined with public health decisions.
Yes, and while vaccination rates varied by region in the U.S., medical professionals consistently had higher vaccination rates than the general public.
Interesting.
It shows the impact of direct scientific literacy and training, perhaps. Trust in science was strongly correlated with the likelihood of getting vaccinated. Another major factor was historical medical racism, particularly affecting African American communities.
The Tuskegee legacy.
Exactly. The Tuskegee experiments, the horrific work of J. Marion Sims. These were explicitly cited as reasons for refusing the vaccine, reflecting a deep-seated and, frankly, understandable distrust in medical institutions.
Peter Hotez, the researcher, he attributes the increased aggressiveness of the anti-vaccination movement partly to the extreme wing of the Republican Party, right?
He does. He estimated around 200,000 preventable COVID-19 deaths in the U.S., mainly among Republicans, due to vaccine refusal. And a 2023 JMAS study backed this up, finding higher excess mortality for Republican voters compared with Democratic voters in Florida and Ohio after but not before COVID-19 vaccines were available to all adults.
Wow. That really highlights how complex the issue of trust is and how historical context can deeply influence public health outcomes.
Indeed. And medical mistrust wasn't just a U.S. phenomenon. Research also found higher medical mistrust in nations with past Soviet-style communism like Russia. There, a lack of consistent information and statistics about their own Sputnik V vaccine-fueled hesitancy, it really underscores that vaccine hesitancy isn't a monolith. It's deeply rooted in this blend of misinformation, personal concerns, and long-standing societal and political factors.
Okay, so given all this misinformation and hesitancy, societies had to come up with countermeasures. What did they try?
Well, one common approach was the introduction of COVID-19 passes or vaccine passports.
Right, the pass sanitaire in France.
Exactly, for public places.
Yeah.
And Italy saw a huge jump, a 40% increase in first doses after requiring a health pass for all workers. Slovenia, Greece, Lithuania did similar things, basically incentivizing vaccination through access.
And public figures, celebrities, they played a role too.
A significant role in trying to encourage vaccination. Politicians like Biden, Obama, Queen Elizabeth II, Pope Francis, even Vladimir Putin publicly announced their vaccinations.
Trying to lead by example.
Yeah. Media personalities like Dolly Parton, who actually helped fund the Moderna vaccine.
I remember her singing Vaccine.
She did. Arnold Schwarzenegger quoted Terminator, saying, "Come with me if you want to live." Stephen Fry spoke about it being a symbol of being part of society.
Did it work?
Well, some might say he was preaching to the choir, but the aim was clearly to normalize and encourage the vaccine for a broad audience, make it seem like the normal societal thing to do.
Specific community outreach was also vital, wasn't it? Targeting the unique reasons for hesitancy in different groups.
Absolutely critical. You saw videos with figures like Romesh Ranganathan and Sadiq Khan targeting ethnic minority communities in the UK, directly addressing myths about effects on minorities or claims in containing pork or fetal material.
Tackling the specific misinformation.
Right. Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg encouraged Black Americans. Stephanie Elam, the CNN correspondent, volunteered for trials specifically to increase diverse representation and build trust from within.
And we also saw powerful stories from individuals who had been hesitant, right? People sharing their regrets.
Yes, those were impactful. Many news articles, social media posts highlighted the regret of those who delayed vaccination and then got sick or saw family members become ill. Professor Chris Whitty, the chief medical officer for England, tweeted that the majority of our hospitalized COVID patients are unvaccinated and regret delaying their vaccines. Around 60% of UK hospitalizations at one point.
Yeah.
That kind of personal testimony, coming from those who experienced the consequences, often carried a different kind of weight than official pronouncements.
As these varied efforts unfolded, some governments felt they needed to implement more stringent measures. That led to vaccine mandates and even targeted lockdowns, which were pretty controversial.
Very controversial. Austria and Germany introduced lockdowns specifically for unvaccinated citizens. Greece fined unvaccinated over 60s €100 a month, with the money going to the hospital service fund.
Interesting approach.
Singapore required unvaccinated citizens to pay their full medical bills if they needed hospital care for COVID-19. Ukraine placed unvaccinated teachers and government officials on unpaid leave.
But these measures faced significant criticism over personal freedoms.
Huge criticism. It's that complex trade-off between public health goals and individual liberties, a constant tension.
On the more incentive-based side, there were vaccine lotteries and benefits.
Yeah, trying the carrot instead of the stick sometimes. Russia offered $1,350 prizes. Moscow's mayor gave away cars.
Cars.
In the U.S., various states and cities, Alaska, Pennsylvania, Ohio, offered scholarships, money, items, and lotteries. The success varied.
Right.
Poland had a lottery with big cash prizes and cars, too. Even a bank in Malawi, First Capital Bank, linked annual performance bonuses to vaccination status.
Creative.
Very creative incentives, hoping to overcome reluctance with a tangible reward.
And finally, vaccine mandates became widespread in many places.
They did. France mandated vaccination for healthcare workers, military, firefighters, resistors, were suspended without pay. Austria introduced a nationwide mandate for everyone, though it was later suspended.
And in the U.S.,
Mandates were seen across businesses, schools, universities, healthcare providers, government departments. But these faced significant pushback, too.
legal challenges.
Lots of them. Judges temporarily blocked mandates for religious reasons. State attorneys general sued the Biden administration. Some sheriff's departments refused enforcement, leading to mass resignations in some cases. The big federal mandate for large businesses in the U.S. was eventually struck down by the Supreme Court.
It really highlights that tension between public health directives and individual autonomy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A major theme throughout the pandemic response.
Okay. We've just taken a really deep dive into this incredibly complex world of COVID-19 vaccine misinformation and hesitancy. From, saltwater scams and fake vaccine cards to these elaborate conspiracy theories involving DNA alteration, microchips, even ancient cell lines, the breadth of false claims was truly astonishing.
Indeed, it really was. And what's equally striking is how these claims fueled real-world hesitancy, sometimes tapping into that deep-seated historical mistrust in communities or even becoming entangled with political identities. Yet in response, we saw these unprecedented efforts from global leaders and celebrities publicly getting vaccinated to governments implementing really unique incentives and, yes, those controversial mandates.
It's so clear that navigating the truth in a crisis is rarely straightforward. This deep dive really shows us the immense challenge of public health communication in an era where information and misinformation can spread globally in an instant.
So what does this all mean for us, as individuals trying to stay well-informed? Perhaps the biggest takeaway isn't just to be aware that false information exists, but to constantly hone our own critical thinking skills. Which raises an important question maybe for you listening. How do you, as a learner, approach new, rapidly evolving information? How do you distinguish between credible insights and unfounded claims, especially when the stakes are so incredibly high? It's a skill that, frankly, will only become more vital in our interconnected world.